So it's the end of the week, and we got a lot to get into, like a new Knives Out movie that just arrived on Netflix. And then there's Quentin Tarantino, who's been talking trash, which is nothing new. But, you know, his latest target is Paul Dano, and Hollywood just isn't having it. I'm Radheyan Simonpillai, sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. Roxana Hadadi, Angelo, Muredda, and Jackson Weaver, they're all here to get into it. Welcome back to the show, y'all.
Hello, hello.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. All right, look, let's start things off with Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery. Have a listen to this trailer.
To understand this case, you need to look at the myth that's being constructed. A man gives a sermon. He then, in plain sight of everyone, walks into a sealed concrete box. And 30 seconds later, that man is lying dead. A classic impossible crime.
Okay, you're freaking me out now.
So you just heard Daniel Craig in that delicious Southern accent playing Detective Benoit Blanc, setting up the mystery in Wake Up Dead Man. Roxana, I mean, look, this is the third Knives Out movie. I mean, what do you think people should know going into this?
So I think people should know, as you said, that Benoit is still doing his like Southern foghorn leghorn sort of like detective thing. But where the first Knives Out was at sort of at like neoliberals and the fantasy of voting for Obama a third term, and the second one was about tech bros, this one is very much about modern day Christianity and sort of how it is being warped and manipulated for people's personal gain. So I will say that it is like a little bit darker. The setup here is that Josh O'Connor is playing a Catholic priest who gets sent to a very small parish. So he is like the intruder on this isolated community. His boss ends up murdered, and so he is the suspect. And I will say that it is like very pointed in its dissection of like modern religion. Blanc is revealed to be like a very confident atheist, which makes his sparring with Josh O'Connor very fun. But I really found it to be like the best Knives Out. I think it has the best rewatch value. And I think Josh O'Connor just like runs away with this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and you're not the only one that feels that way, maybe because it kind of goes in a new direction for the Knives Out franchise. Angelo, you know, I understand you have a favorite scene in this film that really speaks to, you know, what you really like about this franchise, what you like about these movies. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, what I really responded to in this one, I think, is how it makes room for minor human drama, even amidst all of the machinations. And like these movies are about machinations, right? They're about the machinations of the whodunit plot. Everything's always changing in terms of like who the most likely suspect is and what the most likely rationale for that is. But in this one, there's a real attention to the small and attention to the human amidst all of that. There's a moment for me in the first Knives Out that sort of unlocks this moment in Wake Up Dead Man for me. And in the first one, Benoit Blanc is kind of in the background of a lot of scenes before we get to actually meet him. And he says at one point something like, "Don't pay attention to me, you will find my presence ornamental." And in this one, his presence really is sort of ornamental to other people's stories. And in this scene, I think that really unlocks the movie for me, we have Josh O'Connor's Reverend trying to help Benoit Blanc solve the mystery by calling up this construction company and looking for a clue and trying to figure out who ordered something at some point, and, you know, maybe that will reveal the killer. And he's getting the runaround on the phone from this chatty, unhelpful executive assistant who is voiced by Bridget Everett, who's just kind of saying a bunch of stuff and saying like, I don't really know, but maybe I'll let you know and I'll look into it. And then suddenly everything changes, right? She pauses for a moment and says, "Father, can you pray with me? I'm going through this family crisis." And Blanc kind of senses that something has changed in that moment, right? Between this priest who's kind of like a virtual priest in this moment on the phone and this possible, you know, member of the flock on the phone. And he excuses himself to give them some privacy. And it kind of feels like the movie is excusing itself to give them some privacy, right? She goes from being this kind of annoying obstacle on the phone and annoying obstacle to the plot to being this real flesh and blood person in crisis. And I think that was something that really surprised me, right? This is a movie that has all kinds of zingers and comeuppances for people who deserve it, and that's true of all these movies, but it slows down and it allows for this real moment of human connection between two people, and it allows for a kind of quietness that I didn't realize these movies were still capable of.
Yeah, I mean, I think I totally agree with you because there seems to be something, my impression of the Knives Out movies, they tend to be snarky, and that wasn't the case here. There's a lot of grace, especially in dealing with people's beliefs and kind of the faith they hold on to. Jackson, I'm going to turn it over to you. I mean, because look, we're talking about Knives Out. This is a franchise, right? And you typically think of franchises, they're kind of they're leaning on familiarity. They're often trying to tell the same story over and over again. I think what's interesting about the Knives Out franchise is that the only familiar elements that are promised is there's a whodunit and there's Benoit Blanc, right? And then Rian Johnson, this director, he seems to be free to kind of explore a different terrain each time. So what do you make of the evolution of this franchise, and where does this one rank for you?
I would say that's unique in our like modern sensibilities, but that framing is really traditional. I mean, this harkens back to Sherlock so directly as like this traveling investigator going to the other places to like solve all these different crimes with these different characters, but they all embody like central kind of conceits and archetypes. There's this essay by Umberto Eco that I love called The Myth of Superman. And he talks specifically why we like Sherlock stories, that we have what he calls a hunger for redundancy. And he says that not knowing who the guilty party is becomes an accessory element, almost a pretext. It is not a matter of discovering who committed the crime, but rather of following certain topical gestures of topical characters whose stock behavior we already love. Because his whole thing is that like we want these stories that we really understand, because in a industrial society where we have all these shocks coming all the time, we're undoing traditions, we're undoing social mores, we're being always inundated with fear and change. So he also says that narrative of redundant nature would appear in this panorama as an indulgent invitation to repose, the only occasion of true relaxation offered to the consumer. So I think we really like this. We're new characters, but we know what's going to happen. Benoit Blanc's going to come into this really scary situation. He's going to encounter this mystery. He's going to solve it, and we're going to get a cool Southern accent, and everything's going to feel hunky-dory by the end, which I think we get, although there's a little bit of more complication to this one.
Yeah. Well, you know, what's interesting to me, Roxana, I mean, you said that this was your favorite Knives Out movie.
Yes.
But I believe you had some apprehension coming into this movie because it's a third Knives Out movie, right? And I mean, so talk to me a bit more about that. But also, like, I mean, you know, in terms of like what's changing about this franchise, it's always the cast, everyone except for Benoit Blanc. And so, like, I mean, how did that cast, the new cast, end up kind of elevating this for you?
So for me, my apprehension was that the first Knives Out is so much about Trump, and the second one is so much about like tech bros and Elon Musk. And there is part of me that finds those two sort of difficult to rewatch, in that I think they're so timely. And we're still living in an era of Trump and Elon Musk. So there's part of me that does not find those movies as cathartic necessarily as they are meant to be. Whereas I think this one, tackling religion and sort of like how twisted faith can become, that's like a timeless story. That's like ancient. And so I think that it has somehow more urgency by tackling something that is older and like has been part of our culture for like thousands of years, right? So I was really surprised by how I responded to that, and I was apprehensive going in. So I was really pleased by that. We've talked a lot about Josh O'Connor. I could talk more, but I want to instead say that Glenn Close was really the highlight of this ensemble for me. I have been watching All's Fair for some reason.
Okay.
And Glenn Close is also such a scene stealer on that show, and she's doing a completely different performance here, right? As this like near zealot of a woman who is so devoted to Josh Brolin's awful priest. She immediately hates Josh O'Connor's character, right? So she's just really stiff and brittle in a way that is so different from the like feminist girl boss that she is on All's Fair. So I'm just really enjoying this like Glenn Close resurgence. Like I'm 100% there for it, and I found her such a welcome addition to this ensemble.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, I'm actually surprised. I'm sorry to bring award season into this, but I'm actually surprised that Glenn Close has not been part of that conversation. I mean, she's due, and she's so great in this. So I 100% agree with you there. Angelo, let's talk about kind of the actual whodunit aspect of this, right? Because, that's ultimately what these movies end up boiling down to, though I think this movie transcends that a bit. But, I mean, in terms of the mystery of it all, in terms of how it plays out, what did you make of it? I mean, were you able to guess early on who the murderer is, or did it keep you on your toes right to the end?
I am a notoriously bad guesser of whodunits. Like I'm one of the worst possible amateur sleuths when I'm watching these movies. I will say in this one, I glommed on to who is ultimately revealed to be responsible pretty early on. What I will say in addition to that, though, is that it almost doesn't matter. Like, it kind of doesn't matter who the person is. What matters is the reason that they did it, which is almost impossible to guess from the start. What matters is the manner in which it happened, which is even more impossible to guess from the start. And I think, like, Johnson knows that those machinations are part of the fun of a whodunit, even if you do happen to accidentally guess who the person is, which I did in this instance. And I saw this in the theater a couple of weeks ago with a really like chatty audience, like an audience that seemed to forget that they were in a theater. They felt like they were watching it on Netflix ahead of time in their living rooms. And it was kind of fun. Like, it was annoying in one sense that, they were talking loudly through the movie, but it was just kind of fun seeing them like test out different theories and go like, like when one of their pet theories fell away. So I think, like, even though in this case I happened to catch on to it pretty early, it's clearly not the case for everyone, right? Like, some people are still going to be following along and going for the red herrings, and like that's part of the experience of it. But this one happens to be really well engineered, I will say, as a whodunit. Just the actual mechanics of the murder, I think, are by far the most complex of all three of them and the most interesting of all three of them.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's an argument to be made. I mean, you mentioned Ryan Johnson, the director, and there's an argument to be made. You all said this might be your favorite Knives Out movie. I mean, I think it might even be one of his best, or his best movie, possibly. But we're going to put Wake Up Dead Man to rest. But for everyone out there, I mean, it has just arrived on Netflix, so you can check it out there. I'm Radheyan Simonpillai, sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion, Roxana Hadadi, Angelo Muredda, Jackson Weaver. They're all here. Now, I want to get into another thing that everyone's been talking about in terms of Quentin Tarantino. All right. He's got the internet up in arms because of what he has said about Paul Dano on the Bret Easton Ellis podcast. Have a listen.
There Will Be Blood would stand a better chance to be in number 1 or number 2 if it didn't have a big giant flaw in it. And the flaw is Paul Dano. And it's supposed to be a two-hander. And it's
I guess ultimately
not.
It is. You're right. But Daniel Day-Lewis also makes it impossible for it to be a two-hander because there are aspects of that performance that are so gargantuan. It's like he's about to eat the audience. What else can he do? How much more can he take this
So you put
opera?
him with the weakest male actor in SAG? Right? The limpest dick in the world?
Oh, I don't know. I do think that for what Paul Dano had to do, that he was quite good in what he had to do. So I'm kind of defending Paul Dano a little bit.
I'm not saying he's giving a terrible performance. I'm saying he's giving a non-entity performance.
Have you liked him in that?
Okay, so first of all, I was irritated by how they kept mispronouncing Paul Dano's name.
Yeah.
And then it just, of course, got worse with all the comments Tarantino is making about Paul Dano. And we should say Paul Dano has not responded to Tarantino's comments about him. But a lot of Hollywood has, including Paul Dano's There Will Be Blood co-star, who pretty much agrees with everyone else that's saying, hey, Paul Dano's a pretty great actor. Jackson, you've seen There Will Be Blood. What do you think of Paul Dano's performance?
I mean, I've seen the movie, I've read the book, and the book is by Upton Sinclair. He was this politician, activist, and it was kind of a decrying of capitalism just consuming for consumption's sake. And in making the movie, they just invested that in Daniel Day-Lewis's character. He is a guy who has, as he said, a competition in him. He wants to win not because he wants things. He wants to win because he has a compulsive obsession with beating and domineering other people. And who ends up being his, antithesis is Paul Dano's character. But what is the worst thing for this Daniel Plainview, the Daniel Day-Lewis character, is that it's not an archetypal masculine guy that would give him kind of the thrill of beating someone like him. It's someone effete meek shall inherit the earth character, which is what Paul Dano needs to do. He needs to be a non-entity in order to operate as the foil to Daniel Day-Lewis's character, to make him be consumed by hatred. And I mean, there was recently this interview with Kristen Stewart at the New York Times in which she was saying how method acting is an inherently masculine form of acting, because acting in and of itself should be vulnerable, but some men are too afraid to be seen as not strong. So they're like, hey, I'm going to mail rats to people, or like do a bunch of drugs or something.
You're referring, of course, to Jared Leto mailing his co-stars rats on Suicide Squad.
And they need to show how big and strong they are, which is the antithesis of what acting should be. And I think that Paul Dano kind of exhibits what that should be, where he is brave enough to let that character overcome his performance. He's not trying to show you how great he is. He is living truthfully in imaginary circumstances. Now, I will say, Quentin Tarantino, like, you should be allowed to dislike any sort of art piece. If I disagreed with that, then I would probably lose my job for being the only critic that hates The Secret Agent. But I think it's the way. Yeah, exactly.
How did you sneak that in there? That was one of my favorite movies of the. Okay,
see, but Quentin Tarantino, I think it's the way that he attacked Paul Dano that has everyone so up in arms, which is kind of totally out of left field, and I think a fundamental misunderstanding of how that movie works and how acting works.
Mm-hmm. I should also say, I mean, Quentin Tarantino talking about like weak actors, and this is the guy that cast Eli Roth in Inglourious Bastards. Like, that's rich coming from Tarantino.
He also casts himself.
Exactly. There's that aspect of it too. And look, like one of the funniest reactions to Tarantino's comments is actually from comedian Zach Woods, who posted this on TikTok. Now, it was hard to find a clip that would actually work for public radio, but we tried our best. Have a listen.
Quentin Tarantino's been talking shit about Paul Dano, and us very weird-looking white boys have to stand up for each other. So shut up, Quentin Tarantino, you little bitch. You suck. Your movies these days are just taking a historical villain, slave owners, Nazis, the Manson family, and then using them as a thin pretext to enact your same old tired pornographic violence. And then some shot of feet and the N-word.
Okay. Roxana, how much does what Zach Woods is saying there kind of encapsulate how the internet is feeling about Quentin Tarantino right now?
Oh, this is like 100%.
Okay.
This is the reaction. Like, this is it. I do think what's interesting here is that, like, it is really easy to talk about Quentin Tarantino, right? Like, he's only made however many movies, like 9 movies. The style is like very distinct and specific. He does have these, at this point, like stylistic tropes. But I also think the thing about Quentin is, like, as terrible as this read was of Dano's performance, which is actually like a lot slipperier and more villainous than I think people give it credit for. Like, Paul, like the Sundays are villains, right? So I do think that is sort of being lost in this discussion. But what I will say is I think that people have really like glommed onto this because we're living in an era of such PR, image-controlled celebrity management. Celebrities now just interview each other. Like, you're not getting like journalist profiles anymore. Access is increasingly limited. They're stuck on this like video PR trail that includes like the BuzzFeed puppies and the Hot Ones chicken. So I think we're like also starving for some gossip. And I really think that's why the Quentin comments have become so popular and obsessed over, because as terrible as they are, they do feel like an artist actually commenting on the work of another artist incorrectly.
Yeah.
But saying something that feels like off the cuff and raw and revealing in a way that like celebrities just aren't anymore. So I remember like hearing what Quentin said and being like, of course Quentin said this, and also being like, are we a little bit fed from this comment? And I do think we're a little bit fed from this comment, unfortunately.
Oh, it's like, people in Hollywood can hate each other?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Yes.
It's like,
allowed?
Yes.
They can have opinions?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, Angelo, I mean, look, this is actually not anywhere close to the first time Quentin Tarantino has said something controversial or, or has kind of adopted this trollish persona that he seems to be enjoying. All right. And so how do you feel about him embracing this?
I feel a little sad in some ways. Like Tarantino he's kind of in soft retirement as a filmmaker right now, as Roxana was pointing out, which means all we're getting is Tarantino, the hot take generator, which is not a role he plays poorly. Like, it's probably the best performance he's capable of giving, but we want more for him, right? Obviously, he's a yapper. He loves to talk. That's kind of who he is. And for a long time, that was something I think that people respected about him and liked about him, right? Because he was yapping about obscure Asian genre films that could use the attention, right? He's always been a hot take generator, even in the movies. Like, I think of in Reservoir Dogs how he's got this monologue himself in the film as the character where he's talking about the true meaning of the Madonna song, Like a Virgin. And then in Kill Bill, there's the David Carradine monologue on Superman and how Clark Kent is actually the disguise and Superman is the real person. Like, both of those are hot takes, right? That are delivered by Tarantino, but in the context of his films. And I think for me, what's sad is that, like, it's not in service of the films anymore, right? It's just an opinionated guy talking on podcasts. And so he can do that, and that's great. And I do feel fed as well, right? Like, I love opening up, Twitter to see the news of whatever Tarantino is talking about now. But he's got this encyclopedic genre film knowledge. He's got this distinctive style, as Roxana is saying. I'd love for him to use it in making films instead of talking about other people and instead of, giving his hot takes. Put the hot takes in the movies again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just in terms of like this moment for Tarantino where he's doing a lot of talking, he has a lot more time to do a lot of talking because his so-called 10th movie that he's been building up to
eventually
for so
one
long.
of these days.
I mean, it's just not happening.
Yeah.
But I mean, Roxana, what do you think? What do you think the comments, the backlash to it? Do you think this even has any effect on Tarantino's career going forward?
No, I mean, because people expect this from Quentin, right? Like, as we've been saying, like, this is who he is. He's been this person for decades. I think it is, in my very cynical heart, I find it very funny that all of Hollywood mobilized to defend an actor rather than all the other things Hollywood could mobilize to do.
Yes.
So there is that part of it that is very funny to me. But no, I mean, like, we are living in such a time where guys like Quentin Tarantino will always have a Bret Easton Ellis podcast to go on, right? Like, they will always get funding for their movies. All of this is conveniently happening when Kill Bill is being re-released in theaters as like a combined movie-going experience. So there's also the question of, like, of course, to a certain degree, Quentin did this like in promo of his own films. I think Quentin will be absolutely fine. I think there's no problem coming to Quentin whatsoever. Who I really want to hear from is Paul Thomas Anderson, but I also feel like Paul Thomas Anderson will not wade into this when he is dealing with Oscar season.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so then let's leave Quentin Tarantino aside, move on to something, I guess, more cheerful. I mean, look, it's the holiday season, y'all. And, I think a lot of people are binging cheesy Netflix, Hallmark, Christmas movies. And I think you guys can offer up some better suggestions for holiday movies. So I want to get your recos really quickly to all of you. Like, what is your favorite holiday movie? Roxana, let's start with you.
Oh, it's The Godfather. It is not a necessarily traditional choice, although it takes place like over the Christmas season. This was a family tradition for us. My dad loved these movies, so I love these movies. I think that there is something very soothing about watching a family vendetta of murder and despair and betrayal during the holiday season. So that's my pick always.
Yeah, I mean, look, I actually, I agree with you completely. I mean, there's only that one section, or that one section that's set during Christmas, but this story of a family coming back together, perfect holiday material. Angelo, 30 seconds to you. What's your holiday pick?
I'll also stump for a slightly non-traditional one in Batman Returns. It's a kind of cozy, gloomy, snow-covered Christmas movie about a chosen family of weirdos, and those weirdos just happen to be Batman, the Penguin, and Catwoman. So it kind of feels like a Christmas movie, even though it's an anti-Christmas movie.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Christopher Walken character is basically Scrooge, and Penguin's basically the Grinch in that. So, Jackson, 15 seconds to you. You're squeezed here. What's your pick?
I'm going even more non-traditional. My family has a very odd tradition of watching The Prince of Egypt every year. It's Old Testament Moses. I guess that counts. So that's
That
what
counts.
we watch.
And Mariah Carey's on the soundtrack.
Yes,
so very
yes,
Christmassy.
yes.
All right, we got to leave it there. Thank you all for being here with me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jackson Weaver is a senior writer at CBC Entertainment in Toronto. Roxana Hadadi is a TV critic at Vulture. And Angelo Muredda is a professor of English at Humber Polytechnic and a freelance film critic in Toronto. I'm Radheyan Simonpillai, sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion.